welcome in today. I'm so glad to be joined by Dr. David Barker from the University of Derby. David is a senior lecturer in publishing at the university, but he's also spent a significant amount of time at Bloomsbury Publishing House as an editor, which I'll let him tell you all about. We have a really interesting discussion about representation and diversity, about self-publishing, and of course, lots and lots of books. So make sure to stick around for the conversation and let me know what you think in the comments. David, if you'd like to tell me just a little bit about yourself and how you got to work in publishing and your position now.
Hi, Robin. Thank you so much for having me. So I am David, as you say. I am currently program leader for the Masters in Publishing at the University of Derby. Before that, I worked for 21 years in the publishing industry, in the editorial side of things. So I started out as an editorial assistant in 1996 at a part of a company called Castle Academic. And then I ended up working for a company called Continuum in New York between 2001 and 2013. When Continuum was acquired by Bloomsbury, I became publishing director for humanities and social sciences at Bloomsbury Academic. Came back to the UK, worked for Bloomsbury in London for about 3 or 4 years, and then shifted into academia, which I've been doing at Derby since 2017.
Which one do you not which one do you prefer, but when you look back at your time at editing and your job now, are you happy where your career ended up? Because you worked in New York in publishing, which is pretty cool to be able to say.
Yeah, I wish I could look you in the eye and say that Derby is as cool as New York as a place to be, but let's not go there. I think it's really interesting because when you get to my age, and I recently turned 56, you do start sort of looking back at things and thinking, oh, what if I'd done that? What if I'd done that? I would say that there's clearly an awful lot of overlap between working in publishing and lecturing, teaching, researching publishing. I and it sounds like a cop out, but I think I found them equally enjoyable, and I feel very lucky to be able to say that. By which I mean that I spent 20 years working with authors and editing books and commissioning my own books and managing teams of editors, and that was super, super interesting and super fun, and I learned a lot doing it. Having said that, now I've been doing this for 9 years. In a way, there are similarities because when you're working with authors, I feel like you're helping authors get to where they want to be and you're helping them get their ideas out there. And as a lecturer, I like to think that I am helping students get closer to where they want to be. And, in both roles, I would say it is you're helping people and supporting people and trying to get them closer to where they want to be. The one big difference that I have found and that I wasn't expecting was that when you work in publishing, whatever role you have and whatever types of books you're working with, you tend to stick to that silo, right?
Yeah.
So when I worked in humanities publishing, I knew an awful lot about humanities academic publishing. I didn't have to know about what was going on in trade publishing. I didn't have to know about what was going on in self-publishing or children's books. Now, as a lecturer of publishing, I need to be across all of those things.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's really rewarding because I now know that I'm on top of what's happening. I can't claim everything, but I know so much more about now what's going on in the industry than I did when I worked in the industry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think one thing that when I was at Derby, it was always so clear to me how you were also devoted to basically giving us as much knowledge as you possibly could. What is your favorite part about your job currently at Derby?
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
Possible question.
I mean, this sounds really cheesy, but I do like all of it. I think in a way, it is the learning, the constant learning, because it's an industry that changes. I'm about to say it changes so much and it changes so quickly, which it does. But on the other hand, there's parts of the industry which are remarkably consistent and stable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I
there's that
know what you
element
mean,
to
yeah.
it. Yeah, but also so it is the constant learning and the constant shift and the constant change, but also just being in the class. Honestly, my favorite bit is being in the classroom with students, whether that's
Yeah.
master's students or whether that's undergrad students. There is something about that and the teaching and the learning together and the discussing of ideas, which is kind of insanely invigorating and fun. And for me, it's like I'm exhausted by the end of every 3 hour class because I put so much into it, but also
Yeah.
because I'm getting so much back from the students. And it's that kind
Yeah.
of two-way thing that I just find really energizing. And it's a massive cliche, but it's like it keeps you young because it really does.
Yeah. You mentioned something there about things staying consistent and things changing. Um do you like where the publishing industry and book selling industry is going? Because I know that we spoke a lot about like AI and things, and I can't not bring it up. Do you
Well,
like the direction it's going?
I could
It's going.
almost reframe that as, do I know where the industry is going? And the answer is no, not really. I don't think anyone does. Um, yeah, I mean, I do like where
Mm.
the industry is going. I like the fact that so many good and interesting and creative and smart people work in the industry, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's a
Yeah.
given, and I think that's a baseline. And I think when you have any industry that is staffed overwhelmingly by helpful, creative, interesting people, it's going to be a good place to work.
Yeah.
And whenever an industry like that is faced with enormous challenges, which might be the sudden rise of ebooks or self-publishing or AI or whatever it is, or the decline in reading, you've
Yeah.
got a solid base of people there who are trying really, really hard to figure out, how do we deal with this? What can we do differently? So I do like, yeah, I like the way the industry is going. I like the way that some things stay the same, i.e., print books are still very much
Yeah.
beloved by certain parts of the population. I like the fact that the industry is trying very hard to adapt to how it interacts and interfaces with the world of self-publishing,
Hmm.
how it deals with the growth in audiobooks, how it maybe has to interact a bit more with podcasts, and what the hell it has to do about AI. I don't think any of us know yet.
No, I don't think we'll ever actually have that under control. I think it will just be its own thing in the corner,
Well,
doing what it does.
we were talking
Stresses me
about that in
out.
class a bit yesterday, and I think where we are right now with AI is that there is clearly a very strong feeling in the industry that using AI for writing
Mm.
is frowned upon, right?
Yes.
So
Mm, yeah.
very many companies have basically come out and said, we don't want to use AI. We don't want our authors to use it in their writing process, and we don't want our editors to use it in the selection or the editing process,
Yeah.
unless we're talking about, little spell check, that kind of stuff, right?
Mm.
So I do think that's fairly universally accepted, although again, I think there are pockets of self-publishing where that feeling is totally different, but we can
Yeah.
come on to that maybe. But I do think publishers are very, very open to the idea of how can they use various forms of artificial intelligence to streamline and make more efficient some of the processes and workflows that happen behind the scenes in publishing,
Mm.
or to help make their books more discoverable in
Yes.
an online AI dominated environment. You know what I mean? So there's all,
Yeah.
it's very easy to lump AI in under one big umbrella, but actually, I don't think that's the case. I think there are several strands to artificial intelligence which are seen as good or which are seen as less good.
Yeah, it's a bit more nuanced than black and white, I think,
Yeah.
and particularly because outside of the publishing and book selling industry, everybody else is going to be using it, and are using it. So it does scare me, but I'll get over it eventually. You've mentioned about self-publishing. So as a romance indie bookshop, we stock a lot of independent authors. Do you, from your very wise experience, David, have any advice that you could give to authors that are looking to self-publish their books?
Oh gosh, it's probably the same advice that most people give, which is one word which begins with M, which is marketing, right?
Yeah.
We actually, again, I was with our first year undergrads yesterday all day, and in the afternoon session, we were talking a lot about self-publishing, and we did an exercise, which I possibly did with you when you were in our
Okay.
master class at Derby, where we got them in groups, and we got them to research a handful of self-publishing authors, which Amazon itself has flagged up as successful Kindle authors. And it's a really interesting exercise to
Mm.
spend half an hour looking at these individuals who you may probably never heard of,
Mm.
but they are apparently selling enough books and selling enough content and merch and related stuff to make a living out of their writing. And that I find absolutely fascinating. These are
Yeah.
not famous writers, but these are mostly American writers, and they're writing in particular genres, and they are churning out it sounds patronizing. I don't mean it like that. They are creating
Oh, right. Yeah.
2 or 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 books a year, and they've got professional looking covers, and they've got professional looking websites, and they've also got side hustles like I'm going to teach writing at the same time. I'm going to help other self-publishing authors get their work out there. I'm going to do some editing. These are people who are working insanely hard to create an author brand in that kind of Kindle online space. And it's a really, really, really interesting thing to look at. So
Yeah.
I do think part of it is the skill of marketing, and part of it is just the sheer hard work and determination to not just write 1 or 2 books and go, I'm going to have a go at being a self-published author,
Yeah.
but to commit to it fully and say, I am going to make myself a full-time self-publishing author, knowing that writing is only a little fraction of that work.
That's it, isn't it? When you take on the idea of becoming a self-published author, you're taking along a lot more than just writing
Yeah,
a book, aren't you?
it's
Yeah,
a
and it's a
full-time
lot.
job. It's a career. It's an identity. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. At HA, we stock authors from lots of different kinds of backgrounds and representation. I know that you and your colleague, Kat Mitchell, are doing some research into diversity and representation. Just wanted to hear your thoughts a little bit more, particularly how, as an industry, we can encourage diversity more within books and publishing.
You mean publishing more broadly, not just self-publishing?
Yeah. Anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be very careful when we speak about this, because there is a lot of evidence that a lot of publishers are working very hard to improve things in terms of whether it's hiring staff from diverse backgrounds or publishing and platforming writers and illustrators and contributors from diverse backgrounds. So there is a lot of that going on. However, there is also data which suggests or implies or shows even that all of that work is still having quite a slow, sluggish impact on the way the industry looks and feels.
Mm.
So it's a slightly strange picture if you look at it like that, that clearly, again, we took a coach load of students down to Penguin Random House last week, and they were very genuine and very passionately telling us about all of the social impact work and the different strands they've got to their various projects to make publishing more inclusive and more diverse,
Mm.
from their whole lit color scheme that they help run about, changing the curriculum for school children in terms of what books are being read in schools, to the Right Now scheme that they have to get more writers from different backgrounds in. So all of that is happening. Yet sometimes if you look, and Hachette are doing similar things with their raising, so there's loads of good projects going on, but at the same time, it feels like, that famous old metaphor, the classic cliche of, it takes a long time to turn around a massive oil tanker or
Yeah.
something like that. It does feel like the industry is a bit resistant to change in
Yeah.
some ways. And that's, I remember we talked about this in class a lot when you were on the course at Derby. I mean, it's a hard thing. Even if everyone in publishing wants to make the industry more diverse, it doesn't mean that is going to happen
Yeah.
overnight. And the troubling data or research that I've seen is that it's very easy to hire lots of entry-level people from different backgrounds and different social demographics.
Mm.
If you look at those people 5, 10 years later, a lot of them seem to have dropped out of the industry.
Mm. Yeah.
So there's a difference, isn't there, I think, between hiring entry-level people saying, look at us, we're hiring lots of people from these backgrounds, and then actually having the infrastructure within your organization to enable those people to get further up the career ladder.
Yeah.
Bits of it are happening, but I don't think it's happening consistently enough. In terms of authors, um, within the research that I've been doing over the last 5 years. So my research in that area is around non-fiction authors. And there is a very clear trend in the data that I've looked at, which shows that between 2016 and 2022 or 2023, there was a marked uptick in non-fiction authors having success who were from different backgrounds. Here I'm mostly talking about white versus non-white authors. There was a genuine
Right.
increase in those years of non-white authors in the non-fiction space having more success in terms of bestsellers in non-fiction. I think, and I'm pretty sure that then plateaued and it's now going down a bit. So there is a genuine worry amongst some of us that some people in the publishing industry saw diversity as a bit of a trend,
Yeah.
post Me Too, post Black Lives Matter, and then once that trend has been, God, this is a terrible word, a really terrible word. Mike, I can't believe I'm about to say this. Monetized or exploited or whatever,
Yeah.
then maybe you just can. It's easy, isn't it, just to go back to how things were
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
And I do think, I'm not sure that's happening. I'm pretty sure that's not happening deliberately, but I can see it happening subconsciously without people realizing it.
Yeah.
That's my worry.
I think it's when the focus isn't on it, it's very easy for the focus to get distracted by different things, isn't it? And I think
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. What when we was at Derby, you gave us lots and lots of useful advice to get into the publishing industry, which I've still remembered, of course. Do you have, for people that are watching or listening that might be interested in getting into the publishing industry, what is, I was going to say one piece of advice, but I know that that would be too much to ask of you. What is a piece of advice that you would love to give to people wanting to get into the industry?
It is there's a lot of news stories going around at the moment, aren't there,
Yeah.
about, oh my God, unemployment. Even people who are graduates and who've gone to university are really struggling to find a first job, etc., etc. And I'm not dismissing that. There is genuine data that backs that up.
Mhm.
And I've seen news stories like that, and I've seen news stories like that which include people who are saying things like, I've tried really hard to get into publishing, and I've got a really good degree from a really good university, and I'm still not getting anywhere, and I've got one interview or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do think part of the challenge there is the sheer number of applications that entry-level jobs get in the publishing industry. And you hear all these numbers being thrown around like, okay, we get 800 or 1,000 applications for every entry-level job that we advertise. That's true.
Mhm.
But as I'm sure I said to you, and I say to anyone who will listen, don't confuse that hard number with the number of applications that are actually good. And I really don't mean that in a
Yeah.
mean way, but it is always amazing to me because I used to hire people when I was at Bloomsbury in London, entry level people, the number of applications that get sent in that just don't look like someone's taken very much care over them. And I think that stems from desperation is too strong of a word, but people are trying really hard to get into publishing. And when you're trying really hard to get into publishing, you're sending off applications left, right, and center, right? You're doing like 10 a week or 15 a week, any job that comes up. And when you do that, you're not really taking the time to tailor your cover letter and your CV really, really carefully to that job, that company, that imprint, that team, whatever it is. And those ones get weeded out very, very quickly.
Mhm.
So I think my main piece of advice was it's not easy, but when you are applying for an entry level job in publishing, when you are writing that cover letter, you've got to work really hard and take the time to make sure that that cover letter gets across why you want to work in that specific team, in that specific imprint, in that specific job. So whether it's a team doing children's audiobooks or whether it's a team doing non-fiction rights or whatever it is, you've got to convince the hiring team that that is the one job that you want to do.
Yeah.
Even if it's
Yeah.
not, do you know what I mean? You've got to
Got it.
somehow get that across. And in a way, it's fibbing a little bit, but it's very easy to spot on the other end of that if you're recruiting, oh, they just want to get their foot in the door, they just want a job in publishing. And
Yeah.
recruiters don't want that because the main fear is when you're hiring someone for a new job or an entry level role, oh God, what if they leave after 6 months or a year? Because it's a real pain to have to do the recruiting all over again. You want to hire someone who you think really wants to work for your team because then they might stay there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years because that's the nicest thing in the world.
Yeah, it was quite interesting that you mentioned that because at our event on Saturday, there was our sponsor for it was Hodder and Stoughton, and their new Midnight imprint was there, and we went up and
Right.
was talking to them about getting into publishing, and that was her piece of advice as well, was to just make it sound like the world begins and ends with the imprint or whatever job you're
Yeah.
applying for. So it's interesting that was like, yeah,
It
a
really,
lot of people
really
say
makes
that.
your application stand out. I cannot
Yeah,
stress that enough. And
yeah.
it's amazing to me how many people just don't seem to do that.
Yeah, I suppose maybe it's because in jobs outside of the industry, it's a little bit more, no, I don't want to say easy to like fly under, but you really have to in publishing shine
You
for
do, and
it.
I think it's probably the same for any creative industry, like
Creative,
the
yeah.
music industry or the film industry. You've got to they're oversubscribed. So you've got to somehow convince the hiring team that this is the job for you. The other trick with it is the CV. So the cover letter, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Or if it's not all of them use a cover letter, but they have something similar, don't they, in their online application portal or whatever it is. The CV is important, but the thing that I would stress there is you do not have to have a degree or whatever in that thing. You do not have to have had an internship or whatever in the publishing industry. But if you can demonstrate that you've had some kind of office job or related type of job that enables you to tick off some of the bullet points in the job ad, that's what they're looking for, right? They are not expecting someone to rock up with a CV going, oh my God, I've done this internship at Penguin, this internship at HarperCollins. They don't really mind about that. But if you can say, I did this office job for this strange little company that was selling X, Y, and Z, but during that 6 months, I got really good at responding to customers' emails. I got really good at using Excel. I got really good at managing my time and organizing other people's time. That's what they want.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Last question, because it would be impossible to sit next to somebody who likes reading and not ask, do you have any books you'd like to recommend to people? It doesn't have to be fiction, can be any kind of book, or maybe a recent favorite that you've read.
That is a good question. All right, I'm gonna. Well, okay, this is weird, but because I probably even taught. I mean, I haven't taught this book, but I've mentioned this book in my teaching many times over the last few years, but I've never actually read it until now because we're reading it this month in my Village Men's book group. And it is, I'm sure you've read it, lots of people have read it, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. And I've known about this book since it came out in 2011 because it was a Bloomsbury book when I was working there. But I don't know much about the classics. I don't know much at all about Greek mythology, whatever. So I've always been a bit off put by like, will I understand the story because I'm not going to know the characters very well. I know the basics of it, whatever. But I'm halfway through it and I'm completely and utterly gripped by this thing. And what I find amazing about that book is she's basically bludgeoning you over the head the whole time. Like, this is what's going to happen near the end of the book. It's going to be really sad. And I'm like, oh my God, stop telling me that. It's really manipulative, but I keep reading it and I know it's going to make me cry.
I know exactly. Like, I know exactly what you mean. It will make you cry.
Feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. It made me sob. That one. So, it did.
I know I'm walking into this trap of emotional stuff, and I'm like, I'm just going with it. So that's a really interesting book for me to read. What other one can I recommend? I'll talk about my book group again. Our favorite book of the whole of last year. It's very rare. There's 10 of us in the book group. It's very rare that we all find a book that we love. But the book that we all loved last year was what's it called? There Are Rivers in the Sky.
Oh yeah.
Elif Shafak, I think that's her name, isn't it? Absolutely incredible, beautiful book. And it's one of those books which is, do you know what I mean? Sometimes I read a lot of books and you read a lot of books and you're like, that's a really good debut book, or I can see what they've tried to do there. I love it. It's so much fun, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes a book stops you in your tracks because you come away from it thinking, or even while you're reading it, you're like, I'm reading a book here by a novelist who is so good at their craft.
Yeah.
And it's usually like their 5th or their 10th book or whatever. And they've put so much thinking and so much research into this, but it doesn't look like that. But my God, they know what they're doing and they know how to tell a story. And that was one of those books where I was just like, I don't mean to sound like a cocky bastard, but I mean, sometimes you read a book and you're like, if I had a go, I could probably write something a bit like that. With this book, I would be like, there is no way in hell I would ever have the skill or the craft or the experience to write a book that good. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
That's just a fantastic book. It really is.
Some of those books are like 1 in a million where you get one and then you constantly chase a book that feels like that and nothing really comes close.
It's quite rare, isn't it? And it's a personal thing. But it was just weird because we're quite a different group in our book group. So it is really odd for each of us to read that book and to come to the pub the next month and go, yeah, we can't find a single thing wrong with that book. It's perfect. Really good book.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much for your recommendations. And thank you so much for joining me. It's been lovely to have you and get to talk to you again and catch up. It's been lovely.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.